Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. We have our friend today, Vanessa Clare, who is from Vermont, and she's not a content creator. She's not hawking any books or anything, so I don't have to go into a long, detailed explanation. This is hearkening back to my origins, where I'm just talking to regular folks, and your dreams are as important as anyone else's. And so, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. We were talking just a moment ago, before we jump straight into your dream, that you had questions or comments, either way, on the idea of prophetic dreaming. In specific, what is your experience with that? And tell me about it. Yeah.
Well, to give you a real summary of it real quick, about 3 years ago, I decided that I was going to start remembering my dreams. Because I wasn't before. And I heard that if you wake up and you say, who was I with? What was I doing? And where was I? Over and over and over, you'll start remembering. And it started working. And then about a year later, I started having these dreams, and then like the same scenario would play out the very next day. It'd be very, very similar. Like certain things in the dream would be in my reality, and just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a friend. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, most recently, it has been every single night. Every single night. And so, yeah.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I have had a friend who, so this is not like I'm reading about it. I'm not hearing about it from someone I don't know. It's like literally someone I know who, in my estimation, is of sound mind and is not putting me on. They're not fabricating anything. This is not, it's legit. He had an experience. He's telling me exactly what it was. He says he's had a dream, and within a week or two, like deja vu, the exact set of circumstances, bing, happened. Same people, same place, same surroundings. Not like, what is it? How does he describe it? He said, it's not like I had the idea of a certain set of circumstances and it kind of broadly came true. It's like, no, the literal images playing out in reality in front of me. And I'm like, so from my perspective, and for folks who, maybe this is your first episode, you don't know, hey, by the way, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, yada, yada, books for sale, housekeeping, whatever. I forgot. So we'll skip it this time. No, for folks out there who this may be the first time. So my background is purely rational, scientific, highly skeptical. I take all the supernatural stuff and I don't ignore it, but I kind of put it in its own category of like, honestly, I don't know what to do with that. But then I do, so that's where I'm coming from. So people who say they have very specific experiences, I mean, I'm going to take them at their word. But then what do I do with that? How do I make sense of that? And I could offer what I think could be happening, but it seemed like you might have had more to say in terms of the experience in general. I feel like I cut you off. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. I wanted to share with you one of the more recent ones that has happened. And it's actually tied into how I met you. So it's kind of perfect.
Oh.
Yeah. So my car was broken down for a week or so, and me and my daughter were stuck at home, and then miraculously it just started up again. So we went out. I had to chisel the car out of the driveway with an ice pick, and we took a drive, right? My daughter in the back seat was like, I want to go on a long road trip, and I want to go see a show, and I want to do this, and we need to get out and do more. And I'm like, we do, honey. Well, I'm not even going to argue with you. Yes, we need to do something. I went to bed that night and I dreamt that we were in a theater and there was an insane light show going on. And like, I remember there was also 4 people sitting in the theater to my right, and they weren't saying anything. They were just watching. And they were all middle-aged men, and they were all very good looking. I remember that.
Strong impression.
Yeah. So I woke up and I was watching an interview that you did with one of my friends, and he had mentioned something about a crazy aunt, right? Always just knowing things. And I messaged him and I'm like, I'm not crazy aunt. I always just know things because I read tarot and I'm just intuitive like that, you know? And I was like, I love the fact that you're doing like dream analysis and that you did this podcast. That was awesome. And he said that he would refer me to you. Later on, around 5 o'clock in the evening, my sister messages me and says, I have 2 tickets to go see Recycled Percussion. They won America's Got Talent. They did a show in Vegas for a long time. And then they came over, they're from New Hampshire, and they set up the Cake Theater. And they're doing shows every weekend there. And it's about 2 hours away. So I was like, yeah, I'll take me and my daughter were just saying, you know, that we want to do something crazy like that. She was like, I knew that Cindy just wanted to do something. I was like, who's the crazy aunt now? But then I looked at my daughter and the Recycled Percussion's like theme is chaos and kindness, right? Her shirt that she was wearing says be kind on it, right? And I was like, okay. So we go there, we drive out there, and it's a 2.5-hour drive to Laconia, New Hampshire. And we get there, and the theater is beautiful. They started up the show, and it was the most intense light show I've ever seen. I was like, as soon as it happened, I stopped, and I was like, this was in my dream. This was all in my dream. Like, what's going on? It put me back a little bit. A weird thing that happened too. This wasn't even my dream. I went next door to my neighbor's house the day before, and she was telling me about one of her dreams, how someone was just floating in the corner of her room. And I was like, that's weird, you know, levitation. That's a good sign, I guess, in dreams. And when they started, I don't know if this connected, but in my brain, I'm like, it has to be. I don't know, just because of everything that unfolded. They started off the show by levitating in the corner of the room, and then they just hung and they came down, and then the light show started. I was like, this is too much. Like, wow. Wow. So, yeah, things like that happen often.
That is very amazing often. Circumstance. And then to have even a piece of it be something that was told to you by someone else, and then you're like, yeah. How is that in this same experience? That I get tripped out by that kind of stuff too. I mean, Carl Jung talked about synchronicity, things close. What's the actual definition? It's like related things close in time and space in a way that has some kind of meaningful significance. But to have it be like specific circumstances, images, behaviors that all kind of pop out and come together. One thing you did notice is that you were in the dream you were describing. You were in a row with handsome gentlemen. Were they there in the dream, or was that absent specifically?
Oh, the haircuts is what got me. It was okay. So they all had the same haircuts that Recycled Percussion has, and they're all like the group, the band members. They're very nice looking.
Gotcha.
So I was like, maybe that
could have been. Yeah, that is an interesting difference in the dream. That say that the people on stage were the people who would be later on stage were in your dream referenced as being closer to you. So where would I go with this kind of stuff? Because it's one thing to just say, chalk it up to what's the expression, the God of the gaps. Like if you can't explain it, it must be magic. Well, yeah, technically in that definition of anything you don't explain is technically magical. It's kind of the experience of magic. It's like, whoa, that's amazing. I don't know how it happened. We get that feeling from it. I've always been a little unsatisfied by those answers because they're not useful. And that doesn't mean it's not true. Maybe it is. Like, fuck if I know, right? But what do you do with that? You just say, oh, well, you had a magical experience, and there you go. And, you know, bing, bang, boom, bookend it, done. It doesn't allow us to use it in any way to help shed light on someone's understanding of themselves. Or the biggest thing too is, I mean, I'd love to believe all these things are Trump. Very what I call a credulous skeptic. I am willing to believe anything. My bar for proof is pretty high. It's on that scientific scale of, can we quantify it? Identify a repeatable phenomenon consistently? So if there's, that would be another direction to go with this. Like, we don't have to get into the dream analysis thing, but just talking about the concept. Have you been able to make use of dreams of this type in a way that lets you anticipate something and change it? Or is it just deja vu, what is it, we don't know? Or is it more like, I know something's coming, I'm going to act as if it is coming, it does come, I was prepared? Any experiences like that?
It's difficult because when you dream it, like, it unfolds in your dream, and then during the day you don't realize that this is what was in your dream until it's already happening. It's the same circumstance, the things will look very similar, but it's completely different, but it's the same thing. It's weird. Like the
sure.
Theater that I was in did not look like the theater that I was actually in, but the light show, it was a theater. Like, I was in a theater, and it didn't look anything the same. Like, I can't tell you when it's going to happen. I have no idea. And it's always like, that was, like, every single time. Like, I wish I could. That would be pretty.
It very well could have been that I asked you that question. You're like, yeah, once that actually happened. Well, fair enough. It didn't. I don't think that proves or disproves anything. It leaves me with that, like, how do we process these human experiences? Like, the idea of prophetic dreams has been around for centuries. You're not the first person, so it's not like this is a new phenomenon. It's also, you're not alone. Many people have had these things. And like, you go back to the Bible's full of that stuff. And so there's always this juggling in the Christian faith of like, I need to believe it's necessarily true that these prophets had visions from God, and that is possible. And then be also careful and skeptical of my own dreams and thinking I'm a prophet getting messages from God. That's this kind of balancing act of, don't get full of yourself, but also simultaneously believing almost two contradictory things. Well, they did back then, but not anymore. And it's not going to happen to me. And I'm not getting that. But there's been different authors that said we do. And there's in some ways, whether you consider it magical or supernatural or mystical or spiritual, there's a metaphorical, in my opinion, idea of dreams being from God, in a sense. We're putting a lot of quotation marks on things there. But in the very sense, like, so how do I rationalize that, or how do I explain my thinking on it? If your subconscious wants problems resolved for your own benefit, it's like a loving God that sees and knows more than you do. And it's showing you these things are like, here's threats to your safety. Here's causes of anxiety. Here's things you haven't understood yet, but should, because it would be better if you did. And so in a way, that more, it's not an omniscient being necessarily, because you can only know what you know and what you experience and what you think. But in that sense, this benevolent force that is superior to your own conscious perception and at any given moment is trying to share. I think I'm rambling. I've probably said the same thing 6 or 7 times, but I guess that makes sense to you. That's making it a very, very scientific sense of this spiritual experience.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's like, let's get weird, but it's like another like dimension, if you believe in dimensions, or how do we even say it? I'm not sure, but it's a dimension existing in the same plane that we're at now, but it's a different atoms, I guess, matter or something. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
that spurs a thought that I had, and actually I tweeted about this. I'm on Twitter just saying random crazy shit. If you want to follow, that's anyway, not for the faint of heart. Perhaps I say all kinds of real crazy shit, but that's it's what, in my opinion, that's what wizards do. We're here to think about crazy shit and sound crazy, because Well, I am, and
It's crazy until it's not crazy anymore.
Right. And sometimes things sound crazy, and you're thinking of it in a very specific way, and it's hard to communicate. And if people saw it just from that angle, they go, "I get what you mean," in context. Sometimes that's lacking in what was it, 240 characters, but okay. All that to say, someone was saying something about parallel universes or parallel dimensions. So that's what spurred my thought in the context of what you were saying. And the way he described it as is this actually a real thing? Like, how would we even, is parallel the right word to use for it? And my response to him was, parallel is the best we can do being three-dimensional beings, when really it's the equivalent of saying, imagine in a three-dimensional space, one thing being next to another. That's the concept we're talking about, but it's not at all. It's the next layer of dimensions up, which exist not just parallel, but on top of, next to, surrounding, and inside of everything all at once.
Yep.
It's like, it's this, it's impossible for three-dimensional beings to conceive of a fourth dimensional reality, because we just don't exist in that.
I feel like it holds different physics in there or something, or that's why we can't grasp it or something. I don't
or there's something where so it's two things on that. The we don't understand physics enough to understand how it is possible, which maybe we can't. Or there is this real disconnect where the gap between our universes, so to speak, exists in a space devoid of physics. It's like the laws that govern our physical universe don't actually exist in that gap between the next universe. So there's nothing impossible about it according to the laws of physics, because they just don't operate there in that way. That may be the God of the gaps again. Like, I can't explain it, so magic. But right?
Yeah.
It's entirely possible. But so all of that to kind of come around to the idea that I have long, again, credulous skeptic, entertain all kinds of crazy ideas. And this is where things get crazy. It's like, what is it? Who are those guys? Like, Alex Jones and Joe Rogan, and they talk about DMT elves in this other dimension, and everyone's seeing these weird machine elves on DMT, and I'm like, what is that? Hell if I know. But so I entertain those ideas. I've never experienced it, but the idea of what if we can, and this goes to deja vu. This was what I was going to get to earlier. It's like, I don't know what it is at all. There are physical theories that it is a brief hiccup in the brain where energy travels along one path of neurons, and then again, just a little bloop, nothing special, and we get this weird sensation. It gets all physical and explainable, and enjoy it. It doesn't mean anything. Then again, there's the glitch in the matrix theory. I just saw that same cat walk past. They reset the world, But the other side of it is, what if we're getting bleed over from these parallel dimensions? That's also entirely possible, and that it could be showing you a time shifted future where you are at the thing, but the guys on stage were actually in the audience in this reality that you just happen to be able to see in your dream. I mean, fuck if I know, but I love that kind of stuff.
I want to also mention that before this one was interesting because it lasted for like 2.5 days. Like, things just kept on popping up which doesn't usually happen. But before I had this dream, I had deja vu 3 times in one day. And I was like,
that seems pretty rare for most people. Maybe once a month, once a year.
Yeah.
But the 3 times in one day, I don't think I've ever had that experience.
Yeah, like, I just got goosebumps because it freaked me out. I was like, why am I having, like, one deja vu? Okay, yeah, sure. But then, like, again and again, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then this all happened.
That is an amazing sequence of events. And you got to wonder, so you're into the tarot side of things, and obviously very open-minded with the potential for supernatural stuff. And I've always wondered this too, and I don't have the answers, but is it possible that certain people who open themselves to experiences will necessarily have more? Possibly, but right. And it makes sense even from a psychological perspective. If you're like, I am going to limit myself to not having experiences, you never will. It's just physically true. But it looked like you had some thoughts, and I just kept rambling. Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. If you believe it will, and you think that it can, it'll start like happening. And so, like I also said, it's a process over 3 years to where I'm at now. At first, I didn't like even remember my dreams. Then I was remembering my dreams. Then it started unfolding into like more and more. So of prophetic dreams, and so therefore I was like believing that it would happen. And now I'm convinced. I just know it will, and it happens every day.
Yeah. And you said it's become more of a daily occurrence in a way. Like, did you have any dreams last night that specifically showed up this morning already, or man?
So what I dreamt last night, and honestly, it ran through my head to ask you about it. It's such a common thing. So this should be a walk in the park, right?
Maybe.
I dreamt right before I woke up. I dreamt that there was a bright red sunset. Like I'm talking like, oh wow, that's beautiful. And there was someone standing on a rock, and I went to go take a picture of them because it was so pretty. But when I found my phone to take a picture of it, it had started going away.
Mm.
And then they got down off the rock, and I was like, well, I missed it.
Yeah.
And then I woke up.
So you won't know if that was in reference to anything until sunset today at the earliest, possibly.
I don't know.
Yeah. And it isn't consistent. Like you'll have dreams where like they don't happen. They're just dreams. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had a hard time remembering that dream too. That was the only, and usually I don't. I can talk myself into remembering my dreams. Like I said, like who was I with? Where was I? What was I doing? And within a couple minutes, I'll start remembering things. And then, so like say I just remember the sunset period, right? So I'm one of those people who Googles, dream meaning of this, and I'll look it up. And as soon as I start reading what it means, more of the dream will start coming to me.
Yeah.
That did not happen last night, this morning, which is kind of unusual, but.
Yeah. Well, this is so comparing it to my own experience, say I have recently started dreaming more or becoming more aware of my dreams, which surprise, I've been doing this for about a year. Maybe I'm starting to program myself a little more. I can't nail it down to anything. So there's that possibility. I'm having more interrupted sleep due to different factors. I roll over more. So I'm coming closer to consciousness during dreaming, able to remember more, but still only maybe about 4 or 5 dreams in my entire life that I could tell you the entire sequence of events, describe what I was thinking and feeling and what I think it meant or what, but what did I have give this, embarrass myself a little bit here. Almost wet the bed the other night because I was dreaming that I had to pee so bad. And I stumbled out of a tent on this slope near a chain link fence. And I'm like leaning on the fence and getting ready to go. And I'm like, I'm still in bed. And I got up and oh, wow. I almost just like a fire hose, let it go. My brain was apparently trying to wake me up. And I was having this quasi dreaming, quasi waking experience of a real physical cause coming out in the dream of like, hey, take care of this, I was going somewhere with that. With the idea of, maybe remembering dreams and whatnot, but still, so the process, what janks my process is, let's say I had a dream the other night and what I was able to remember of it. So that was right as I woke up, very strong impression, like I'm going to remember that one. I was dreaming, and very interesting that I came out of a tent, like I was camping and there was a slope and trees, like a pine forest thing. Like that image is very strong for me. But there would be other dreams where it's like, I know I was in a car and I was opening the door, I think, but that's it. I couldn't tell you the color of the seat. I couldn't tell you where I was going, anything that happened before or after, just that one impression. So I focus on that, trying to open the door to the other imagery. And there's two things, I'm rambling too, but there's two things that are necessary. One chiefly is that you do document a dream as soon as possible after waking up. You start open that door. You don't want to wait later in the day until you've forgotten most of it. This is a bad plan. But the other is that there's got to be an unfolding in your mind of like exactly what you're describing of, I can remember this one detail, and if I focus on that, then I'm able to remember connected events. For me, it's the opposite. If I try and describe and write down, I was in a car, I was opening the door. Oh, just bringing myself back into that moment actually shuts off all the other images. Like if I had a sequence of 10, focusing on one, the others disappear completely. I don't know how to hang on to them. I just don't. So I think all of that.
You get real relief too. It's so weird when you're thinking is that like when I try and fish out the rest of my dream, this sounds crazy, but I can feel my brain like looking for it. And sometimes I'll grab a piece of it and I'm like, oh, I remember this. And the rest of it would just fall away. It's a feeling. It's weird.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And this is great to talk to folks who have such a different experience of their dreams and their ability to recall, because it's not something I appear to be able to do currently. Maybe I can eventually someday, but I've even tried to start. Like what I wanted to do was, I've got my little teaser trailers, What Dreams May Come. I've got the actual episodes, and I've got an Augury, Bibliomancy, and Chaos series, the ABCs of dream interpretation. I like the clever things like those ABC, like explaining the basics. Yeah. One thing I want to do is on that series actually like interview myself sort of, and I've tried to think of different ways, like do I put myself in the box over there and over here and talk to myself? That would be fun, maybe. But at least detail my dream and say, okay, here's the ones I do remember and what I think they meant to me, and kind of what, it's specifically there's two of them that kind of opened my eyes to the relevance of this back in college 25 years ago, where it was like, I see how this was an idea of my own conception, and I needed to kind of just look at it, and that would help me understand what it is better, and how I felt about it, what I wanted to do with it. I had another point for this stuff too. Where was I going with all that? The idea of, and this is bringing the tangent way back. There's a phenomenon that say Freud discovered or elucidated, described it, and he wasn't right about everything, and he wasn't wrong about as much as some people think, but he called it, secondary elaboration. So there's that is the phenomenon, and it does happen. Is like we wake up, and the longer we sit with the dream, the more details our brain fills in for us that may or may not have been there. And that can be a tricky thing as well, because you want to be as true to the original experience as you can, but you're also now trying to invent the proper descriptive language so that other people can see what you see and understand what you felt. And so there's always the risk of, and this happens with memory too, where we think we remember something in a specific way. And we talk to someone else who was there and they're like, I don't remember that at all. It happened completely differently, or several details, they remember them differently. She wasn't wearing a red dress. It was blue. Why would you think it was red? And now you got nothing but, there's no pictures. There's just two people with very different memories, and who's right? Hell if I know. I was going somewhere with all that too. Secondary elaboration. It seemed like you had a thought, and I just kept rambling.
Have you ever heard of the asking yourself, who was I with? What was I doing? And where was I? And you can't say it. Like if you say in my dream, you won't remember. But if you just say it as in general, you'll start remembering. Like that's how I started That's how I started doing this. And I still use that practice to this day because it absolutely works.
You did mention that before. I've never heard that in terms of a specific process. How did you stumble across it, or did you invent it by any chance?
I'm trying to remember. I believe more than likely it was on YouTube. I believe it was Clark Kegley on YouTube, or I don't remember who. But I was like, yeah, it's worth a shot.
Sure.
It was when I was heavily studying dreams, and like how our brains like slap faces onto whoever in your dream and just the science behind it,
Yeah.
And it was just a suggestion that like if you say like where was I in my dream? It confuses your brain for some reason. And I noticed absolutely that when you say in your dream, your brain won't do anything. But if you just ask in general, it does start bringing it up. And sometimes if you repeat it over and over again, those 3 questions, and nothing happens, you let it go. And within a couple minutes, something will come to you.
Yeah. And that might be a very, I mean, at the very least, it makes sense as just practical advice to approach how can I improve recall of dreams in general, is because there's usually a setting, and there may be other persons. There's certainly objects. Sometimes people are objects in that sense of, you're in a room with a person, or you're in the room with a chair. And in some ways they're very different, but they're both objects in that sense. And who was I with? Well, nobody. The room was empty. There was a chair, and that can spur that kind of a thing. Definitely the classic. What is it? What is a newspaper story supposed to tell you? The who, what, when, where, why, and how. Yes. You can kind of do that about your dreams in a way. You leave the why till the very end, or but like how, where was I? What was I doing? With whom? How were we doing the thing? That's a lot of stuff that I pull out in my kind of intuitive dream interpretation process. So did you want to set aside, so we've discussed quite a bit all over the place, and fair enough, nothing wrong with that. This has not been unproductive, I don't think. I love sharing these ideas, but we could take a different tack on the dream itself and try to look at let's say why maybe you would have had that experience of going to the concert in that way with the lights and the people. We would have to separate it from, one explanation is it was a real prophecy image from another source. We would have to kind of separate that out and say, okay, what if it's not? And then look at it in other terms, if that's useful or interesting. I don't know if you prefer to just keep talking about dreams in general, or you want to try and look at that dream for what it might mean to you.
We can look at it. That's why I'm here.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I know you're kind of short on time. Yeah. We're about a half an hour in. You got a time limit too, so I want to be respectful of that. So we got the very basics of it, in the idea of when you first appeared in the dream, like the first thing you can remember from that experience, you're already in the theater, or were you approaching the seats to sit?
We were approaching the theater. There was screens up on the wall that had it was weird. It was like, like women like coming out of the beach, how they fling their hair up and stuff. They were doing that on the screens.
It was the men with long hair doing that?
No, it was women on the screens, okay. on the TV screens. They're big LED screens. And there were women flipping their hair.
Not on a beach though, but just fully,
in the theater.
In the theater. Now, was the image on display was not a beach scene. It was just women flipping their hair back as if they were coming out of the water, wet or not.
And then we walked in to the theater and we sat down, and they were men were in front of us. I want to say like 3 rows in front of us. And and there was a huge light show, and we're just like, wow.
Okay. You said initially you were approaching the theater, so you were actually outside and walked in, and it was say in a lobby where the video screens were, with women tossing their hair. And was there a crowd in any sense? No crowd?
There was nobody in the theater. It was just us and those 4 people.
Okay, that's interesting too.
Which so I do remember being like, "This is weird. We're the only people here." And then that was the strangest thing.
So it was in the dream that you actually had that. This is unusual, that there would be people absent from this normally crowded space. We're coming to a show. It's very few shows have an audience of one unless they're paying really well.
I know, right?
But that is interesting too. Is that
Flying out of the theater.
that you felt that in the dream that it was, you know, not that it only that it was unusual in reflecting back on it once you woke up, but that you noticed the unusualness at the time. There should be people here. There's something missing from this. And how many video screens were there? Was it like, you know, a wall of those, like when they have the multi-screen things and it's like 60 of them all spread out, or was it like one here, one there?
Two of them. One, they're a long rectangle and they're on the side.
Yep. Were they near the entrance to the theater itself?
They were inside of the theater. Like,
okay,
we walked in and then the screens were playing the video. And when we sat down, and then the light show started. So
that was not in the lobby. The lobbies where you noticed it was empty. There was no line to get in. You didn't have to give them a ticket.
I didn't even know that we were going into a theater. I just remember walking into the theater and like, yeah, so I don't remember if it was outside or inside or what. Like, I just remember coming into it.
And then in the actual, say, like there's the building, the theater, which then has the, you know, ticket taking booth and the doors and a lobby where there's usually concessions, or at least a place where there's a second set of doors and leads you into the actual, say, auditorium with the chairs and the stage. Some people think of being in the theater as, well, I'm in a chair in front of the stage. Well, there's other parts of the building. There's a bathroom in the theater. You know, it's also the theater is although we don't think of bathrooms when we think of the theater, it's in there. Or was I going there? So that's why I'm trying to parse out these, what things were, how you're describing them. So you actually get inside that second set of doors into the auditorium space. And was it, what size was it? I mean, is this a, relatively small theater, or is this like amphitheater? Huge?
It was small.
More
it was intimate? A relatively small theater. And I couldn't see the whole theater in my dream. Like, it was just like my tunnel vision on, like, I could tell there was a stage, but I couldn't see the stage.
Gotcha.
I could see the screens, I could see the seating, and I could see those four people, and that was it. It was like one little peripheral, and that was it.
Yeah. And those screens, any recollection of how the women flipping their hair were dressed, or their appearance, or facial features?
It was, anything? They were like neon lights. So like, it wasn't like, how do I say this? Like, it wasn't like a picture of like me or you. It was like a digitalized photo with neon colors of a woman flipping her hair. Does that make sense?
Sure. I think so. Okay. I think so. Yeah. More of a stylized, I would say cartoonish in a way, kind of. But it wasn't a human, it was like a digital, what do they call it? CGI, computer graphic. Something, yeah. In a way. Interesting that it wasn't real people. It's an image, a representation of a woman. The same woman or two different women in two different pictures? In unison?
I believe it was only one. I think it was only one.
One person on two screens. Mm-hmm. And the video's playing in unison, both flipping their hair at the same time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. And neon, you said, so like yellow, red, any colors
blue.
Pop to mind? Blue neon. And different tones of blue, kind of like to give it.
It was like a tealish kind of neon teal blue.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. And then, so you notice that, and this is on your approach down the aisle towards your seating arrangement. Are you in the center aisle of the theater, or off to one of the two, side aisles? They usually have a couple of those.
I want to say it was probably in the center. I feel like there was stuff behind me that I just couldn't see in my dream, but I feel like I was in the middle of the seating. Yeah.
And then how close to the stage did you go? Halfway, three-quarters, about halfway.
Halfway. Yeah. Because there was, I want to say, 10 rows in front of us, and the people were sitting about 3 or 4 rows in front of me, because there was still seating in front of them.
Okay. And they were the only other, and you were with other persons in the dream, or you
So
don't remember seeing?
I feel like I was, but I didn't see them.
Okay.
Like I know somebody was with me.
So kind of a feeling of presence, but no visual
Right.
of actual people being with you.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting too. So it's kind of, I don't know what to make. I'm making little carrots as we go here. I do that thing where I'm like, what is that? Every time I say interesting, I'm like, yeah, what does that mean?
Randomly, I know this is another thing that tied into this with another dream. It's like a couple nights before, I had dreamed that I was in. I want to say it's the same theater. Like the feeling that I get is it is the same theater. And I was in the hallway, and there are two cleaning ladies, right? A mother and a daughter. And I walked up to him to ask a question, and the mother started like flipping out on the daughter, hitting her with her sandal. And me being me, I walk up to her and I was like, "Are you a psychopath?" And I was like, and they started like busting out all kinds of facts about psychopaths to her. Right? I wake up knowing that everyone is you pushed out in your dreams. I'm like, do I think I'm a psychopath? And then I go to the theater, and there are two ladies. One was showing us where our seat was, and the other was running the place, all right, and all the seating and everything. And the lady who was showing us where our seat was, she messed up, and somebody was sitting in our seat already, and she got really nervous, and she's like, "Oh no, now I got to go tell her." And she was afraid to like go up to her and talk to her because she was going to get yelled at and all this stuff. And that was the first thing that I thought of. I was like, was it like this playing out kind of the two dynamics of the lady who runs the shit and the lady who's like messing it up, and they went at it over here in real life, like and then the one who was in charge came and sat us and was like, "I apologize," and I was like, "Oh wow." Like I felt a vibe like of the same energy of that.
That is very interesting. Yeah. And to have that represented in a different ways. That's another thing. Like we kind of dive a little bit back into the supernatural side of things and say, maybe it's like sometimes you could get an impression of something, theoretically, and your brain puts it in a specific form that it's not going to show up that way when you actually see it. But it's as if your brain is saying, well, it's like this. It's like this kind of a situation, or that's the, imagery your brain conjures for the feeling, the impression you're getting. Popey, when I'm sitting up in the chair like this, he doesn't have a lot of lap space. I'm afraid he's going to roll over and fall out. This is our little peanut butter.
He's cute.
Yeah, he's cute.
He's peanut butter.
Yeah,
I love it.
He was our inheritance from a deceased relative. That's I don't need money. I don't need your stuff, but I'll take your animals. That's fine. That's nice. He gets a nice little retirement his last few years, however long they are. It's not, he's only like 9 or 10, but he's getting to be middle aged like his old man. So that was a separate dream, and that wasn't this one specifically. Fair enough. That's another like what
it was in the same week though,
right? So close in time to this approaching experience that at that time you had no inkling was even going to happen. You didn't know someone was going to show up randomly, and so that's another thing too. Is looking at these things from a purely rational scientific side of things, I would start looking for triggers. You knew a show was coming. Well, okay, so you dream about the theater, and then to have it very similar still would be bizarre. But there would at least be a reason it was formulated in the first place, some reference to an event. But to have it sprung out of the blue and to have someone invite you, even if the desire was there, which was part of it. I mean, you'd mentioned the night before this dream or the day before, whatever, you'd been talking to your daughter, and this desire to get out. And see a show may have shown up as, well, we went to a theater in my dream. That's always possible, but
that's what I took it as too. But then it all came out. I was like,
no idea what.
And she was wearing this shirt, like the Be Kind shirt. I was like, this is like, okay. Yeah, for sure. But that doesn't mean we still can't make something about some of the other. It's just like maybe. And there may be a blending of the two as well. It may be like, here's these impressions. If we go with the ESP side of things, you got your antenna tuned in and some vibrations coming through, and it's giving you these impressions of like, we're going to be at a theater and you're going to see these guys, but here's some other stuff your brain's putting in there in the specific form and the sequence of events in a way. And we hadn't actually gotten to the
The light show. So you and I wanted to get to the seating as well. So you took yourself to where you knew you were supposed to sit, and it happened to be a couple rows back from these handsome gentlemen, and they were sitting there. And any strong impressions about what they were doing, or about your experience of noticing them, and anything around that?
Well, they were sitting and they were looking forward. They didn't turn around and look at us. And I just found it weird that they were the only ones in this theater.
Yeah.
I mean, I recall them looking up at the screens. Like, I could only see the back of their heads. They were looking up at the screen and looking up at the stage area where that would be, but that was it.
Okay. So they were just kind of, and that is interesting too, the idea that they're the only other people there. They're not in the same row with you. There's no interaction with you. There's no acknowledgement of you. They're just present. Their attention is facing forward. There's iconic imagery around. Okay, back this up. You mentioned dream books, and I tend to discount the likelihood that those are the best source for each individual person. That said, there's the broad strokes of, we have common human experiences around certain types of objects or categories of things. So sometimes there's broad strokes that do make sense. And all of that to say, we get to the idea of, a theater is a certain iconic space in our mind because of the way we think about it. It is a place where there will be a performance. There will be a show. The people, there is a division between the audience and the actors. There's a stage and there's seats. And there's very much this attention focused forward to the display. So we get some of these things start percolating in our head of like, so in that context, what does a theater mean in a dream? It depends, but it also contains universal experiences. There's a concept of going to the theater that comes out of it, and you start looking at that like, well, was I on stage or was I in the audience? You're in the audience, so you're not the one there to be on display. You're not there to say, if it was like a classrooms are set up that way, say in college, it's an auditorium with theater chairs and the stage is the professor and he's giving out the knowledge, and so it's very much a performance of knowledge distribution in that sense. So we can look at it in a lot of different ways on that. So all of that to say, this is where my brain goes with these things. So you are an audience member, and these other people there are also audience members. They're directing their attention forward as well.
Yes.
And that was the original thought I started with, and I went way too far back to explain my train of thought. There's something in my estimation, there's something going on there with the idea of you putting these as the only other persons present, and that they were not there to see you, but something else, but that you took notice of them because of their position in front, where along your line of sight to the stage. So there's something in there of the idea of connecting your observation of them with the general concept of directing your attention towards the impending performance. I don't know if that ringing a bell with anything. I said a lot of stuff there. Maybe it sparked a thought, or it didn't.
Well, that's about what it was.
Fair enough. Sometimes people have a moment and they're like, yeah, now that you say that, bing, and then something comes out. I think I rambled too much, but this is why I try to put carrots in things and come back and start at the beginning again on the second pass. So I'm doing my own process out of order. It doesn't matter. We're going to get something if we can. Was there any moment of, like you said, so you sit in the chair, you notice the guy's light show. What was that transition like from, was it like instantaneous, bam, light show just starts, or was there some announcement of it? Did the lights go down?
Just started.
It just started. And
it was very intense, like, whoa.
Yeah. Now you say light show, and I start thinking, lasers through smoke, or flashing lights, or fire bursting on stage. I mean, all of that, none of that.
All of that.
All of
Well,
it?
besides the fire, no smoke, but like lots of lasers and um
What do you call it?
lots of
Strobe
lasers,
effects.
strobe effects and stuff like that.
And where were all the lights coming from? Were they all around or primarily coming from the stage area?
There was so much of it I couldn't even tell you. It filled the room. Like, yeah. I'm assuming from the stage area and from behind. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, and that may mean something too in terms of like where is all this activity coming from? It could have been very much confined to just coming from the stage, but it seemed to be, and when you say intense, that it gives me these associations in my mind of overwhelming, like too much. Did it feel like it was this is way more than I expected or wanted, way more than I'm comfortable with?
No, it was just bright and a lot of it, you know. And it was like an awing kind of light show
Okay.
in my dream. And then yeah, I was completely set back by the actual light show at the concert that we went to. It was big for the little teeny tiny theater that we were in. I was like, wow, I'm going to like
Yeah, someone put a lot of work into it for a rather
yeah.
small venue in that sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. And did it seem to have that impression in the dream as well of like this is a lot for this little place?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting there. Well, we've gone through and kind of pulled out some more of this. We're running out of time, but we can try and pull something together there. There's definitely from the very beginning the idea of soliciting the wish fulfillment, say, of going to an event with your daughter. An interesting tangent, or not tangent, but occurrence that you there was this idea of people being present with you, but them not featuring as objects in the dream. They were there, but they were not there. I don't know if that makes sense to you in that
does,
way.
yeah.
Yeah. And I wish I could say it better too, or what I think it might mean is
I'm trying to think of the word I want to say stand buyers, but I don't, that's not the word. Trying to think.
Yeah, there's a what is that, like if they don't sell out, some people can get into the seats,
Yeah.
standby tickets of like, well,
Yeah.
if you're lucky, there might be a couple chairs in the back, someone doesn't show up, but the idea that what would I say about it, your conception of this thing, your brain is saying you're not there alone, but it's not about other people. So and to such an extent that it's empty. It's empty. It's actually, there's very much, from that psychological point of view, it's like this is your brain saying whatever concept you're exploring, it's very much about you and your experience of this thing. You're not tagging along with someone else. You're not navigating a crowd of people in your way. It's like, just think about you. Yeah, but other people are with you. Of course they are. But it's more about you. And you go through and into the theater and you kind of know where you're going to be sitting. And it's giving you this interesting, let's say we put it in the context of broadly the iconic feminine. And there's something about, there's images lately, and maybe they have been all along, of men doing the hair flipping thing. I can do the hair flipping thing, but it's more of an iconically feminine gesture of, this long hair being on display type of thing. And it's interesting that was noticed before coming to the seat where you put yourself in the receptive position for whatever is going to be shown to you, and then noticing the masculine. So we've got these feminine representations on display and masculine representations in the audience also there to participate in observation. Are you having a moment?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. No, that makes sense. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know. And you can stop me anytime and say if things like pop out to you or if they spur other thoughts. Usually I just ramble until people have sudden moments and then they interrupt me. It's usually the best way to do this. I don't know if you just think about that in general, of like, this is something that very much relates to you observing something and this these masculine and feminine representations, and the concept of display and attention and focus. When you think about some of those concepts, does things come to mind to you?
Man, like,
not to put you on the spot, kind of.
I don't really know, like the masculine feminine thing. That's interesting. I don't know how to. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I might be rattling the wrong doorknobs. So how do I contextualize that better? Is like you had mentioned earlier the idea of, you know, all the people in the dream are you. Sort of, it's your idea of that, what they represent. Certainly that they are. It's not that it's necessarily a part of you. I would diverge from that theoretical perspective specifically.
Good. So I don't think I'm a psychopath.
No, exactly. No, if we were to look at that dream specifically, it would be more your brain exploring the concept of psychopathy spurred by observing someone being abusive towards someone else. And it's like, do you realize how wrong that is? And let me tell you why. And it's more of your brain, say, maybe inventing a scenario where you get to lecture someone on their behavior, possibly, or the idea of hearing yourself think out loud by being given an opportunity that makes you think of something specifically, which is kind of where I'm going with this idea of you alone, but not in the theater, not fighting crowds. So this really isn't about other people. It's about you thinking about the concepts involved more personally, in a way that doesn't depend on these interactions with other people, because you really don't. In the entire dream, other people feature briefly in different ways. Yeah, that's where I would go with it. And what I would depend on is, your feelings of resonance that spur additional thoughts if I'm on to something. And it seems like maybe I'm not. Maybe all the ideas I'm throwing out there are logically connected, possible representations and themes and different stuff. But if it's not striking a chord, then it doesn't matter whether something seems to make sense on the surface and whether I was very clever in describing it. It matters more that it really feels so. So if you're not having broader inspirations brought to mind on the broader concept of these, observations of that. What am I trying to say? That description of events, then it may be completely on the wrong track. I don't know. Have you given this your own thought, looking at it from the perspective of, well, if this wasn't the prophetic type of thing, what do I think it means? What does it leave me feeling after I had the experience? Did you do your own kind of self-analysis of the dream at all?
Yeah. I don't recall what because I do every single morning when I go and I analyze what was I thinking? What was I feeling? Yeah. Oh, this one kind of left me a little stumped. Like it really did. Yeah. I was like, okay, so a theater, is that me? Is because, when a house in your dreams represents like your body cavity, right?
Good,
and the thing,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, a theater, what's that about? And it was it kind of got me confused a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I just remember, and no, I really don't know. This one's got me stumped. That's why I kind of wanted to talk to you about it, because normally I can figure that stuff out and I can, analyze, well, this is this part of me kind of shining out and I got to focus on this, and this is trying to tell me this, and I know, this one, no. And then it all unfolded really oddly.
That is strange. And I mean, that could be, if we can't get to anything else that feels relevant, we can always chalk it up to saying, hey, this was one of those bizarre occurrences where it didn't seem like it meant anything beyond what actually later happened. Like just this broad strokes, generalized sequence of events that I saw in a specific way for whatever reason, but it actually happened. if it has no other psychological source, that's possible. That's possible that it was just a radio receiver getting a message from beyond, and that is the literal cause for the experience. That's always possible. I did have a thought though while you were talking. You mentioned you and your daughter. Are you? It's okay to ask. I hate getting too personal, but currently single. Were you single at the time? Have you been
single, yep.
looking for a relationship in general? Open to one, or kind of
open to it? Yeah,
open to it, but not a. It's not a burning desire. It's not something driving you to take action necessarily.
Correct.
My thought was this dream could be related to that singleness. That's not the right way to put it, but to the idea of you considering relationships. What do I want? What would be the cause I wasn't in one? Not a blame type of situation, but looking at what is it I haven't found, or are you having any thoughts surrounding that in relation to the dream? Is that spurring anything, or?
Well, it's interesting. Like, go on. I don't know. I mean,
sure. Well,
it could be. I don't know, because that is like it's a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and that would be something. What is it? There are people who are perfectly happy being alone, and there are people who are perfectly asexual. They just don't care. They no care for relationships, no care for intimacy physically. That's not most of us. Most of us do feel that desire, and when we don't have it, there's you want to get down, buddy? Okay. When we don't have it, there's varying degrees of what we call it. Suffering is not the right word, but it bothers more people than others. Even people who care, they might care a little, or they might care a lot. They might feel devastated and lonely. And it seems like you're not in that camp, but there's some, and it's not ambiguity either. It's a little bit of weighing the options. Like, I'm fine. Would I like more? Sure. But, so there could have been something in there. It's kind of what I'm getting at is this idea of, especially the only other people there were men, and they're in the audience to observe, and what's on display is this feminine. And there's this stuff in our culture where that's kind of men observe women in a way, or like women have more responsibility to be on display than men do, or that I don't know if you know where I'm going with all that. Like it's
I do, yeah. I get what you're saying.
It's lining up with some representations. This all depends on if that's how you conceive of things, or if I'm bringing my own, not biases, but conceptions of how the world works and what things look like to it. It'd be good to get your alternative take or expansion on it.
No, that I mean, it makes sense. I wouldn't have thought to think of it that way, honestly. But I mean, like, kind of, yeah, technically, yeah, like,
yeah. And interesting in the dream too. And again, if it doesn't resonate, if you're not getting if you're like, I don't know, maybe really, if it just makes sense, but it doesn't feel like anything important, maybe it's not. But it's also interesting too that you were behind them. They don't even see you. They know nothing about you, no interaction with you. So you aren't on their radar, so to speak. It's like these men you thought were very attractive sitting there, and you're like, whoa, maybe you would like to be noticed by them. Maybe that's a thought that went through your head in the dream, but they can't see you at all. They're looking at something else. They're looking at this other maybe representation of the iconic feminine in this brightly attractive, neon, hair flipping, performative sense. And I mean, you probably look at that and say maybe that's not me. You do you identify with the hair flipping woman, or is that not your style?
Like, I mean, I flip. You know what I always say? When I'm talking to people or flirting with anyone, or just like anything, I will put in text, I will write flips hair. And I've been doing it for years.
Okay. So that's actually the opposite of where I was thinking it might be going, is this is a behavior that you have done or would find a way to generate attraction.
I go with it.
Dramatic,
but yeah.
Well, you look at it, say, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but you look at it as someone being overly dramatic or someone being performatively, enhancing their chances that they're going to attract the kind of attention they want? Where do you go with that?
The second one.
The second one. Okay, so it's not an
Yeah.
inherently negative thing that someone would do that. It can actually be what is it? In a sense, a hunting strategy. If you want to catch a partner, get your eye on someone. Hey, you can be a little cute on purpose. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting there.
Yep.
So, and that was what the men in the audience, these men you would find attractive, were focused on this display in a sense. And you're kind of, and maybe it may not mean. This is where I start second guessing myself. Of like, I have one idea, I have another idea. I'm like, okay, they're equally possible. Maybe it isn't. I'm off the radar of these people. Maybe it's more like, and that means one particular kind of thing. Like they don't see me. I'm not someone they would consider appealing because I'm not doing the thing. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or you're in the back and you're actually just observing how the masculine representation directs attention to this type of thing you've conceived of. That is on display in this theater, and then bam, light show, and then an overwhelming, but in an awe type of sense. So where to go with that, and how to, if we're on the right track of these kind of basic broad concepts, then how do we figure in the light show? What is it that comes to mind with you? You said awing, this sense of awe. What other, what am I trying to say? What other ideas or concepts or feelings come around the idea of bright, intense, flashing lights in a theatrical sense? Anything come to mind?
It was just cool to watch. Like, I don't know. They were red. I know that.
I didn't even ask you the color of the lights. You did have colors
Yep.
in the dreams. A lot of people have no colors whatsoever. So flashing red lights. So you get this neon blue woman thing going on, and the flashing red lasers and pulsing lights, and there's a lot of them, and it's very intense. And but you're not describing it in any negative sense. Like this wasn't frightening. It wasn't blinding in a sense of I can't see, so I'm in danger. It's
like one of those things where you can't stop watching it because it's cool,
Yeah, and not a can't stop watching in a train wreck way, but in a specifically, this is awesome, I don't want to miss a moment of it type of way.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with that unless you have specific associations that come out of it. Yeah, this might be a stumper. I mean, we had a great conversation either way, and I think I just noticed the time of my running down your clock there.
It's okay. Yeah, no,
it's
it's okay. I'll message my person. It's not a big deal.
Okay, good. I don't want to keep you keep you forever. I could ramble. I've had an episode as short as 45 minutes and one as long as 3.5 hours over 2 days because the guy just wanted to keep talking. So, what else could we do to try and give ourselves context for the lights then? Nothing seemed to trigger it. Nothing seemed to cause it to happen. It didn't. It was in a particular sequence of events, and that usually connects to something like transitional points in the dream when something new starts to happen. It's like the way we string together our thoughts, and that was what I believe dreams are. It's our thought process as we're sleeping, and usually expressed visually, sometimes in words. But so there's something maybe about noticing these men and their attractiveness and their attention that immediately led into amazing light display. I don't know if you think about it in those terms, if anything comes to mind about the sequence of events and what might trigger one thought to the next.
Really, it just it just happened like one after the other.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I don't remember. I don't know.
Fair enough. Sometimes I rattle all the wrong doorknobs. It just happens.
I'm trying to grasp the question though. What exactly are you?
Fair enough.
Asking?
Yeah. So, what am I trying to say? There's usually a logic to the sequence of events, and sometimes the completion of one event is the necessary trigger of the next event. How do I explain that?
Well,
yeah.
The screens with the ladies flipping their hairs, that shut off, and then the light show started. If that, I mean,
Maybe
that's
that's
about
relevant
the only
detail
kind of
when you think about it.
transition.
When you think about it that way, so you observe this thing, the ladies on the screens, and two of them. We haven't really come down to why two. Why not one? Why not one? I don't know.
There are two screens, though.
Yeah. And your brain could have very easily said, "There's one screen," and it very easily could have been a real person and not a cartoonish representation in neon. There's something very much about that presentation style. And yeah, so the sequence is, you notice that, you sit down, you notice the attractive men are also watching that. Their attention is all focused in that direction. And it is when that stopped that the light show began. There might be something in there in that transitional sequence of events.
And I also want to say I didn't ever sit. I stood the entire time. I stood in front of a chair. I didn't sit.
I didn't even ask. Yeah, that may be an important thing too. You didn't make yourself comfortable in this environment.
Nope, I just stood there and was kind of like checking out the place. I was like, oh, look at this. Oh, there's those people. And then everything just kind of happened, like the light show happened. And I remember just standing there going, wow.
Yeah.
And in the concert that actually happened, they had us all stand up. And then the light show kind of started happening. And then they came down from the ceiling and went down onto the stage.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
And the light show was red too. It was
all
like
of these things that
the
line
light
up
show was
like,
exactly the same.
It's hard to look at exactly that thing and say so many elements are similar. That too many elements are similar to say this has no relation.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, this is just too much.
Even my skeptical brain goes, I don't know how to explain it. I can't put a specific cause to it or explain the process of how it happens. But some things are so interesting like that they're not they're not easy to dismiss as irrelevant. They certainly feel more meaningful than something that's like, oh well, that happened. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
I know. Yeah. Sometimes I just feel like I don't know specifically how to explain some stuff, so I feel at a loss for words. I'm like, wow, yeah. But I can't do a show saying, wow, yeah, the whole time. I gotta have something useful to say, I think. But if we put it in that context of, what is it? So thinking back to the maybe purely scientific explanation of brain patterns and what is it that could be? I don't know why, and this isn't the right concept at all, but seizure. And not, of course, flashing lights in my brain connects to the idea of, not that you had a seizure, and not that that's even the right concept, but when I think of how the brain works, and what a seizure is like it's all these neurons firing all at the same time. We get our muscles lock up and we lose consciousness and control of things. It's almost like this overwhelming light show is happening if we imagine the electronic impulses in our brain as all these lasers firing in every different direction. And that might also be a metaphorical representation in a way of certain emotional experiences like awe, like being just dazzled by something, spellbound. We have all these different words we use to describe it. So there might be something in there of this sequence of events, whatever the concept is you're working through, gets you to a point of a positive experience from it. That's a wrong way to put it, but this dazzling, awing, light show type of experience, almost like the payoff at the end of some kind of hard work. I don't know if that's making any sense in that conception.
No, that's interesting. Actually, it's like, yeah, I mean, kind of. Yeah, that's interesting.
To what purpose? To what understanding? If even if we conceived of it that way, what is the payoff? What did you struggle through? What did you discover? What is it paying? Like if you get to payoff. It usually means there's, in terms of, say, a story, there's foreshadowing, there's character development and struggle, there's some maybe, and it depends on the story too. In a, say, a murder mystery, solve the mystery, bam, payoff is the grand reveal. The hero's journey, payoff at the end, the enemy defeated, the dragon conquered, the gold, there's all these different types of payoffs to storytelling experiences. And that happens in real life too. You go to the gym, your goal is strength training or endurance, whatever, and you hit a certain milestone, bam, get that rush of adrenaline or that sense of satisfaction of accomplishing something. Now that's all the wrong. What am I trying to say? That's not the story we're seeing here necessarily. That's why I think I'm struggling a little bit to conceive of the right language to describe it. Is there's very much a passive observer quality to a lot of the dream. You're not really very dynamic in it. You're seeing a lot of things happen. There's
Yep.
Yeah, watching it all very much, and very much in that I'm an audience member in the theater type of way. That could lean into, and it all depends. If you start lining it up with your approach to different things in life. Sometimes it's regarding specific events. Sometimes it's analyzing our general approach to things, our general attitude about, so I do things in this kind of a way. Sometimes we not second guess, but analyze, review our own process. Is this functioning as intended? Is this doing what I want it to do for me? Am I accomplishing my goals using this method? Sometimes their dreams can be like that too. They look at those concepts in that form. I don't know if any of that says anything to you. Had you been going through reevaluating anything in your life at the time?
Like my whole life. Like
only your whole life.
Only my whole life.
Well, now, was that unique to that time, or was that you kind of do that frequently? Is that you just self-reflect a lot?
It's been more so lately.
Around the time of this dream?
Yeah.
And specifically in relation to wanting a partner in life or a relationship?
This too, I had just gotten, like, not to dish, but I had broken my hand. I had just broken my hand. And it was because I got way over emotional over a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had gone through the process of releasing him from my life because he had been there for 6-7 years. And and I'm a strong, independent woman and I don't need no man, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you're saying all that is kind of interesting too,
Yeah, that's another, at least another logical source for why some of these images might be coming to mind. And so what am I trying to explain here? There's a phenomenon that happens to some people where they're like, dude, I was horrified in my dream. I stabbed a dog. I love dogs. I would never hurt an animal. Why did I do that? First thing I let people know is this is not some secret desire to be an animal abuser. That's not what that means at all. There's something to the idea of stabbing or causing harm in that matter, and that it was a dog specifically means something in this process. And the fact that you were horrified by it is fantastic. That's great. That's not who you want to be. So it isn't. Yeah, it isn't very often where we look at a dream and the dream says, oh, or if the dream shows you went from point A to point B through all of these other intervening steps, this must mean that is what you should do. Sometimes we look at, well, what if I tried this type of thing this way? What if I tried it that way? We do those. It's like thinking through any other type of a problem. You want to, I want to tidy up my room. I could start here. I could start there. What are the pluses and minuses of beginning in certain areas, putting more or less effort into different aspects of it? You can kind of strategize that before you ever get to putting your hands on a vacuum cleaner. So sometimes we do that in our dreams as well, with this concept of one discrete dream experience might be, well, let's look at this type of an issue from this angle in this context, and what does that look like to me? And then we don't have to come to the end of it and say, well, that must be what I want. That must be what I should do, or what I'm trying to tell myself is the right way. Sometimes we look at absolutely the wrong way to do something on purpose to figure out why it's so bad. I got to point to all that. I really did. Something about relationships. Oh yeah, and so the stream maybe was not necessarily telling you to do something about it, but it seems like it is related to this broader concept of where you are in life regarding relationships, and having just left one, and reevaluating the idea of, well, what do you want? What do you want? What if you chose to pursue a certain reframing of your concept of relationships and what you want out of a relationship in a specific form, and it showed you this as a kind of point of contact with that concept. Is that making sense? Am I getting to?
Yeah.
Well, not just logically, but like resonance wise, in terms of, if you think of the dream in that context of broader relationships and, you know, ending with this light show. I don't know if anything comes to mind.
No.
Not specifically. Yeah.
It's just interesting that
Sure.
you're interpreting it this way, because I mean, like, yeah, but interesting.
And I could be completely wrong. You know,
that's interesting.
Yeah. And this is where I'm going with all these things, in terms of like, what does each of the elements mean to you individually? And then I feel like I haven't given you my ramblings, my speculations, my conceptual suggestions haven't really struck a chord yet. I could be way stuck on exactly the wrong thing. I honestly could. There was only one other dream, I think it was episode 19, where nothing I said was anywhere close to anything he could feel. He's like, I don't know about that. And when you're not getting anything, it might be the completely wrong tack on it. I would love to hear from you in the future, having maybe spoken to someone else who's able to kind of pull out different potential relevant associations with these specific symbols, and see if something else seems to make more sense. In terms of that resonance, it's got to really be like, oh yeah, that doesn't just make sense; it feels right. That's usually what I'm going for with people. So yeah, it would be cool to hear back from that.
And that's how I usually decipher my dreams of what they actually mean, because you can Google everything with dream meaning and all that stuff, but I always go based upon how I felt in the dream and what, like what it meant. Like the dream beat that I had this morning, when I woke up this morning, like the feeling of a lost opportunity was just, that's what the whole dream was about. I was like, oh, okay, that's like, so.
Gotcha.
So that's how I do it too. But
yeah, if you had to describe this dream we're talking about in the same way, you woke up from that dream last night with a sense of lost opportunity. What did you come away from this other dream with? A sense of.
So it's hard to, like, I'm the two dreams of the lady with her daughter and this dream is the same sense of like, I don't even know how to explain it. Hold on, let me think about it. I felt very comfortable being there. I always go to this place. It's like, it wasn't a new feeling, so it was a sense of familiarity, and kind of like a mysterious feeling, because I didn't know what was going on, even though I was comfortable being there. So being comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time, kind of.
Interesting. So if we put that
Yeah.
in terms of thought processes, we do have patterns of thought and ways of approaching situations that feel more comfortable than others from familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting idea too. I mean, it could be, and again, it all depends if there's a actual resonance to it. But the idea of doing something familiar that is comfortable and rewarding in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we put that in, if I was not on the completely wrong track, if we put that in the context of your reevaluating your approach, say, to relationships, and now what do you want after having just left one, most of the times we come out of those experiences with at least a clear idea of why it wasn't working with that person. And then sometimes maybe, even in leading up to that decision, we have already gone through the process of saying, do I want the wrong things? Should I be the one to change to accommodate this other person? Am I being unreasonable? Whether or not we decide we are, we at least consider that possibility, because the breakup is, one kind of a decision in that regard. It's the kind of decision to say what I want is not wrong, and this person doesn't have it. It's not working. And I'm not going to change because I've decided that's what's best for me, or what I'm comfortable with, or what I actually want. So sometimes we come out of that and now we have a new direction in terms of looking for something better, looking for someone that does fit those circumstances. There could be something in there related to this dream in terms of, what am I trying to say? The idea of treading a familiar path, being comfortable with yourself. You're alone in the dream. You're not, but you are. Other people are with you, but they're not. Yeah, but they're not. Those kind of iconic things, as I was saying earlier, are the ones that give me the idea of where to put the focus. There was no interaction with other people. You were very much alone in the dream in terms of your experience. Other people were there. You saw other people there, but there wasn't an interplay. There wasn't a connection with those people. There wasn't what's it called when you're, like, in a way it's in relationship to them. There was no dance of conversation, of any kind of interaction. So one way to look at that is to say you feel isolated, but you didn't in the dream. You were perfectly comfortable. You were okay being alone. So that's one thing it could be saying about you in general is you're fine. It doesn't mean you don't want something else, but it's not deadly. It's not going to kill you to be alone. You've done that before. Sure. You're at least comfortable with it. But then there's this other familiarity of the space you're in and the comfort level with that in general. I don't know. Does it say anything to you specifically? The idea that you were not in contact or communication or interplay with the other people present. This is where we start getting into things that some people might find embarrassing to say publicly. Are you theoretically, are you a person who's more distant in relationships in general, or someone who's really close? Some people, distant people think close people are clingy, and clingy people think distant people are rejecting. So sometimes there's a mismatch there. Maybe your personality style and relationship style does lean towards a little more independence, even though there's a connection. I don't know. What do you think? Yes, you do kind of lean in that direction?
That does make sense. Yes. I don't want to say, I'm pretty independent, and I have my clingy moments, though.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of judgmental language that goes, you're being distant. Well, you're being clingy, and it's different styles. And
so it's really interesting too, because like as soon as I did, get all personal, but as soon as I decided that I was going to start looking into dating like a different type of person, all right, I started talking to someone who is very distant. Like, they don't talk to me very often, but they are very interested, and they go slower than than the people I'm used to dating. And they, their approach is different than what I'm used to, and I feel like it's actually like, I don't know, healthy. Like
Maybe so. And was this all happening before the dream?
I want to say I was talking to him for about a month and a half before the dream.
Okay. That could lean into it as well. You had made a decision to reevaluate how you approach relationships, maybe look for something different. Maybe you identified a pattern of, broadly speaking, again, judgment-free dysfunction. Like maybe there's a lot of the reasons that these relationships didn't work. It was all the same type of thing. And so, well, that's not working for me. So we changed the approach. I was going somewhere with that. What was I trying to say? The idea of, so you've made a decision to, so dating is comfortable for you in general. I mean, that's not something you have tremendous anxiety around. You've done it before. But you did decide to pursue a new path. That's where I'm getting to some of those iconic imageries of we've got the masculine presence and the feminine display. So you may have been thinking of yourself as what do other people find appealing about me? What display do I present that catches the attention of an attractive man that I would want to give me attention? But you're also, this idea that you're standing and not sitting down too, standing is a very, not very, what am I trying to say? If you had sat down, that's making yourself comfortable in a way. It's like, I'm here. I'm sitting. There's like something in sitting down that it would be different from standing, that would be different from running. You weren't running away or running towards. You were just present, but not getting comfortable, not seated, not settling in, so to speak. And that might have happened at a time where you're still feeling out this potential relationship. You're not getting comfortable in it yet. Maybe there's that aspirational part too of, you've got the men attending to the iconic feminine attractiveness on display, and the payoff is like the awe-inspiring light show. Maybe you're looking at this potential relationship and saying, if it pays off, it'll be wonderful. I'll feel great about this experience. Could be around there. It depends on how it feels to you. What do you think?
It was a direction I wasn't expecting it to go in, but that does make sense though. Here's the thing that you've been looking for. Aha, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, very well could be. Yeah.
That's so funny.
And I hesitate to say it's the only answer. I mean, I started with a lot of assumptions and, and built a logical argument that made sense in the context, and that may very well be exactly what it is. And someone who started with different assumptions about what the images meant might have taken it in a different direction. So this is why I tell people, don't just talk to me. I'm one guy. I think I'm pretty good at this in terms of making those logical connections, but it is all, the validity of an argument was based on sound premises in the first place. If it does, it adds up to something true. If it doesn't, it may be logical, but it may be way off base. So.
I'm just saying, this is all of a sudden I'm like, this makes a lot of sense now.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe now finally at the end, you're getting a little more sense of meaningfulness to the whole idea.
That's interesting.
Okay.
That's interesting. So then, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to ask. It's just the prophetic part of it, how it actually happened and unfolded. But then it's like, I don't know, translated it like this, like the whole relationship. I don't know.
Very, very different approaches.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing. So if we look at it this way, our conversation about the idea, about the experience would have ended, half an hour, 45 minutes ago, if we had just said, well, prophecy, amazing. Thanks for watching, but we dove into it from a little different perspective and what I'd like to try to do, or I'm trying to get better at is the idea of giving people not just a better understanding. Sometimes that's all you can do is say, hey, it looks like this to me. And then you send them away with it and let them make of it what they will. But then also, I want to give people a little bit more sometimes. I struggle to do it in a way that doesn't give advice, but like a useful next step type of a thing. I don't know if you, so if we're right, all the presumptions, etc. Did it go anywhere with that guy? Is that okay to ask? I don't want to.
It's been about 4 months and things are going really slow, but he's very yeah, kind of. Like I'm supposed to meet up with him tomorrow before I go
Okay.
to work. It's very slow. Like
Sure.
I held his hand the other night. That's how
That
slow it's going.
for
Like,
sure. That's a very specific kind of guy. And you know, you said healthier, and that was kind of your description of slowing things down a little bit. It's very possible we jump into things we feel too strongly, we move too quickly,
mhm,
we make
yep.
hasty decisions. Feels amazing, like people that you're the love of my life. I've known you 2 days. Let's go to Vegas.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes that's beautiful and it works. Not very often. That's sometimes because you get a week into the honeymoon and you're like, God, you're an asshole. Why don't you ever put down the
Yeah.
toilet seat? And well,
It takes 3 months to kill a facade. I'm just saying.
yeah, there's always I mean, we say this in across multiple. There's always a honeymoon period with a new person, with a new job, with any experience. You kind of got to settle into it and really get an idea of what it is to let the newness wear off. What is it? There's being dazzled by the change of scenery itself, just the
Yep.
novelty of the experience. Okay, let the novelty wear
Dopamine
away. Now, is
gets
there
shot.
something under it? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying how dopamine's being constantly shot off,
For
so
sure. Yeah.
we're like, ooh, I like this.
Yeah. And when that goes away, what's left? What
Exactly.
really is it here? Is there
Crush.
something meaningful? Is there something functional? So in this, all of that to say, I was going somewhere with that too. The idea of sometimes people watch me rub my forehead. It's itchy, but also at the same time, I'm trying to knock the ideas loose. Where is that? Is it over there? Right? Exactly. The idea of different interpersonal styles. And I try to do this in a way that's like judgment free with people because I don't want to tell anyone you're necessarily wrong for being passionate and a little more impulsive unless it causes problems. That's its
Right.
own type of thing. But if it works for you, it's not inherently good or bad. The same thing with slowing down. It seems like the way you're describing this guy is, he's interested. You're not worried about the attachment. Seems to be the type of person who is, you can trust his word. And if he says, we're not jumping into bed or moving in together immediately, we're going to go slow. I'm not going to see you very often. I'm busy, but you trust the interest is genuine. You feel it when he is around. So there's a comfort level with this change of approach that is maybe unique to this person or his way of doing things. All of that to say, you may have been ready for a change in that regard, a change of approach that, slowing down in general feels like the right thing to do. And so you found a guy who's like, well, he's moving slower than I expected, but in that general direction, what I thought was a good idea in the first place, this seems to be working for the right reasons. And that doesn't mean, where was I going with that? That doesn't mean there's anything necessarily objectively healthy about taking things slower. There may be, and there's a good argument for it, but it's the match of the right styles, the right person with the right needs at the right time. That's where I was going with all that. I don't know if you have anything to say. It seemed like I had a point there. All of those thoughts came to me when you're talking about how you made a change with the circumstance. And
Yeah. It's wild.
yeah,
Interesting.
for sure. Well, we've actually gone a little over what we'd originally planned. I don't know if you wanted to wrap it up or
Oh,
what's that?
I said, sure, whatever you would
Okay,
like to do.
good deal. I want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I could just ramble for hours, but so I usually leave it up to the dreamer to say, I think I've got enough to think about, or I want to keep
It
talking.
was
So,
interesting. I wasn't expecting it to go in a direction of relationships because I was like, wow, I dreamt up this situation with me and my daughter to go do something cool and that.
yeah,
But
and I
that
think
makes
thinking
sense,
about your
though. It
daughter
makes
too
sense.
is wrapped up in
Mhm.
your relationships as well, because she's going to be impacted by your decisions, and you're
Yep.
going to be impacted by how she responds to your choice of dating and partners and what. So even just that initial context can lead straight into all these deeper questions of, well, what do I want? How do I make it work? And do I change my approach? And yeah, it's good stuff. Hopefully,
Yeah.
even if all of this is completely out of my own head, at least I'm identifying things that seem to make sense to people in terms of examining their own life and understanding their own thought process. It could be nothing more than that.
No, I mean, you're good at what you do.
Oh, thank you very much. Hey, as long as you had fun and you feel like it was a worthwhile experience and people enjoy watching it, we're all good. I'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to doing this ever since we started talking. So I'm very grateful to have spoken with you and talk this one through. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I'd say, keep my email and keep me posted in terms of, hey, it's working out great with the guy, or I moved on, I decided I wanted something else. Just curious. Just keep me posted. Right? There you go. Me too. Wow.
Okay.
This thing is
do
crazy.
the beard flip.
Right? I wish I was going to get the ZZ Top or the Gandalf someday. It seems like that's just about where it lives right there.
Yeah, you have a terminal length.
I do.
Where your hair just stops growing. Some people can grow their hair down onto the ground. Some people can't.
For sure. I think this may be, I don't know, I'm getting there close with this hair too. We're going to find out. My wife just once, she wanted to flat iron my beard. And it was almost twice as long. These are kinky pubes, weird beard hair.
Blow dry it, brush it out, flat iron it.
It was kind of amazing, just for fun. And then I thought I should put like Pirates of the Caribbean beads in it, and it was way too much work. I decided not to do it. Okay,
Come on.
We'll
talk
wrap
to
it
a
up.
hairdresser. I'll convince you.
What's say again?
I said you're talking to a hairdresser. I'll support your wife. She should beat it up and braid it up. And
if she did it, I'd say I would sit still. That's fine. I'd let her do it. I'm not gonna do it myself. It's too much work.
That's awesome.
I know, right? Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap it up. We'll let you get on about your day, and I'll just say, well, once again, hey, thanks to our friend Vanessa Clare from Vermont. I did write that down, right? Vermont, correctly?
Yes, Vermont.
Okay, yeah, way over on the other side of the country. Talked to last week a gal from Germany. That's always interesting. Yeah,
Germany.
International audience, spoken to people all over the place. So. Well, I'll just say one more time to all the folks out there, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, buy a t-shirt, coffee mug, direct donations. I have 12 currently available books of historical dream literature, 500-600 years of dream history from fantastic authors presented in modern forms, heavily footnoted, lots of great information, bibliographies, and indexes, and just really, I take it seriously and try to put out a good product. So, that's enough housekeeping. We'll just say, once again, thanks to Vanessa and everybody out there. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.